project I am looking at doing this week is something that I have been putting off for a couple weeks now.
I'm waiting at the doorstep to finally home. I've been gone for too long.
Did I get that on the first try?
Standing here a while just to take it all in. Radiance playing our song. And then you stood there smiling at me as so many times before. I'll never wanna be away, leave you again. You are all I want and more.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. This week we are back in the kitchen. We're continuing our kitchen makeover. We've done the cabinets, we've done all of the paint, we added the trim, we made the new brass hood. The project I am looking at doing this week is something that I have been putting off for a couple weeks now, because it's something that I knew was going to be really frustrating for me. And that is finally replacing these countertops and the backsplash with a new marble contact paper. Easy enough. It sounds easy enough, right? If you have seen any of my previous videos where I work with contact paper, you know that me and contact paper don't always get along. We have a very love-hate relationship. The love part obviously comes in because contact paper is such a useful tool for anybody that DIYs or anybody that rents, because you can really transform something without doing any damage to a place. But it's a hate relationship because it is such a finicky tool. You have to go slowly, and it can be so frustrating sometimes. So I've told myself at any point in this project, if I feel like screaming, I am just going to put my tools down, step away for about 10 minutes, breathe, and come back. So hold me to that, because I guarantee you I'm going to need it. But if I can get this project to look the way I think it's gonna look in my head, it's gonna be so good. It's gonna look so good, it's gonna really make this kitchen pop, if I can get it to turn out the way I think it's gonna turn out. So, project for today is demo day. We finally are taking out all of this yellowing tile. We're gonna take out all of this old contact paper. As you know, when I painted, I didn't cover up anything because I knew it was all gonna go away anyway. So it's, for the last couple of weeks, it had splotches of green paint on it. It's kind of coming off. All of this wood stuff is coming off. And I've kind of just been living with it because I knew it's gonna come down in a little bit. So today's the day. Let's demo this old stuff so that we can put in new, beautiful countertops and backsplashes. You know, I have to tell you, I might consider just like having nothing on my counters when I do this, when I finish this kitchen makeover, because it feels a lot bigger with just open countertops. Food for thought. Let's start taking off some of this yellowing tile that I've been staring at and hate now. Easy! good time to do a little reminder if you did not watch the painting video. Peel and stick tile is a good tool for renters, but at least from my experience, it rarely does not cause some damage. For me, it caused a good deal of damage, as you can see in here, but that's mainly because not from the peel and stick tile, but when I moved in, the quality of the paint job that they did was so bad. They used such a really poor paint and they were painting over everything. It was really haphazardly and quickly done. So it's peeling up a lot of the paint, which isn't a huge problem. Obviously, that can get scraped off, and I was planning on painting anyway again. So that's not a big problem, but it is something that renters should know going into it, that you are probably, when you're gonna take it down, it's not just gonna be like take it down and move on with your life. You're probably gonna have to do some repairs to the paint once you peel it up. Not a big deal for me, but for some people, I know that might be a no-no. So obviously, something to think about. There we go. Before I move on to removing the contact paper on the counters, I'm going to go ahead and patch the walls now, so it's not something I have to deal with down the road when I'm moving or some other inconvenient time. Absolutely going to feel that in my neck and shoulders tomorrow. That was a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. It was really stuck there. But you know what's funny is that, like, I thought I was going to have to, like, Goo Gone everything. It's not sticky at all. Like, it was holding on there, but it is not, like, there's nothing. There's no, like, glue residual left on it. So I guess that's a win. My neck will not be considering it a win tomorrow, but small victories. I am reminded why I covered up the countertops in the first place. I hate these counters. They were so 90s to me. And actually, it's kind of funny now with the green in here. It feels like it almost kind of starts to look like a cheetah print, like very jungly in here, especially with the plants and the green, and now we got a cheetah print going on. It's definitely an aesthetic. It's definitely just not my aesthetic. Anyway, that's done. That's great. Demo is done. We can start from scratch now and get new countertops and a new backsplash. Tomorrow I'm going to work on the plywood for the rest of the backsplash and filling in that top section here. So that's the plan. Good morning. We are on our way right now to Home Depot. We are gonna buy the plywood that we're gonna use for our backsplash to kind of fill in the gap above the little 6-inch backsplash that they currently have with the quartz or granite or whatever's there. We're gonna get that. I think I can do it with one piece and just have them cut it down in half, and then that can fill in both. I think I've done the math correctly. And then I need to get a couple little odds and ends because obviously I'm pushing out the wall about 3/4 of an inch with the plywood. I need to get a couple of like outlet extenders, so I'm gonna pop all the outlets out so they can obviously go on top of the plywood. Just little things like that, but mainly the big thing right now is getting that plywood and getting that cut down so we can pop it into place, and then we can start working on the contact paper. One of the things that I was nervous about when thinking about this DIY was how exactly I was going to create the plywood pieces that fit into this little area right above this lip. I was like, I'm just gonna have to measure them absolutely perfectly because they're gonna have to fit snugly in there. And I was like thinking about it for a while and stressing myself out about it. And then I was like, why am I overcomplicating this? I'm just going to get some paper and make a stencil. So I'm gonna use this and kind of cut it out and basically just put it up on the wall, cut it to the exact dimensions that I'm gonna need, and basically just make a giant paper template that I can use and put right on the wood so that I can just cut it out perfectly, and I don't have to worry about trying to measure up from exact lines and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes the solution is actually a lot easier than what you're making out to be. So this might be a good time to explain why I'm creating these plywood pieces. I probably could have saved myself a lot of time and energy by just contact papering over the little backsplash and just continuing up the wall. But I absolutely hate these little 6-inch faux backsplashes that they do on countertops. And part of the design I had for this kitchen makeover was that I really wanted it to look like I have solid slab backsplashes that go all the way up, which is why I'm taking the extra time to create these plywood pieces that will fill in that gap between the backsplash and the bottom of the cabinet. So hopefully it'll look like I have one solid slab of marble once the contact paper's on top of it. Fingers crossed. Obviously, if it wasn't a rental, I could just tear out that backsplash and just create a full new one, but gotta work with what I have and get creative. Once I had all the edges and electrical outlets all fully marked, I could take it off the wall and cut it down so I have just the template left. Alright, so we have the first stencil for, I don't want to wrinkle it too much, for the side piece here, which is going to be the longest piece. Little bit tricky, but we got there in the end. I'm gonna do the back piece and then we can start cutting out the wood. After getting so far yesterday, I was really excited to get these pieces cut out and try to fit them in. And I realized that the new blades that I bought for my jigsaw were the wrong one. They were the wrong size. They were made for a completely different jigsaw. It was so frustrating. It was getting late anyway, so I was like, well, I'm not gonna run to the hardware store now. So I'm just gonna clean up and I'll go again in the morning. So I ran to the hardware store this morning. I got the appropriate sized blades and we are ready to cut these out. So let's get these cut out and let's see if we can get them fitted perfectly on these walls. Did I get that on the first try? What? You guys, look how perfectly this fits on the first try. What? And it like matches up evenly here. Like that's just gonna be, I need to pop it out a little bit more on this side because the wall's not straight, so this doesn't sit flush to the wall on this side, but that's fine. I can just do like a shim. But oh my God, that fits perfectly right there. I'm so impressed with myself right now. Okay, for this side, I turned off the water. I'm not going to disconnect the entire faucet. I'm trying to fit it right now, and I'm going to have to disconnect the entire sink and faucet when I do the actual countertop. So I'm going to do that all at the same time so that I don't have to keep putting it back together. But for right now, I just kind of unscrewed it so that I can lay it down and I can get this piece in here just to see if it's going to fit. So fingers crossed, am I 2 for 2? Oh, I feel like I just jinxed myself. I am so pleased with myself. I feel like I shouldn't. I feel like, wow. The outlets are perfect. This fits perfect. I'm gonna have to, it's kind of bent, but that's fine because it's gonna be screwed in here anyway. But it fits perfectly here. Both of those, and even look at the edge. Boom. I wanted this to come out a little bit because the edge of the counter and the edge of the cabinet are not even, so I decided to just continue that line up. Bam. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. That feels so good. So, story time. This project was actually progressing a lot better than I had anticipated. Everything that I was worried about actually went really, really well. And so we were progressing on schedule. The final order of contact paper was set to arrive the next morning after I had finished cutting out all of the plywood. And this final order was the largest rolls of the contact paper. They were the widest ones. They're 36-inch wide. It's one of the reasons why I went specifically with this contact paper. And I walked up to my door, saw the package, saw that it had been delivered, and I opened the package and it was empty. which was so frustrating because I had to special order it, and it took like a week and a half for it to get there. So I got on the phone, and the people were really nice, and shipped another one, and I said, is there any way it can get out any faster than a week and a half? And they said they'd do their best. It still took about 5 days for it to get there, to get another set of those rolls, but it put me so behind. I didn't have any other materials for other projects lined up. I was just like, I don't know what to do. I can't move forward with this project at all. I don't have any other projects. I don't have any of the other materials for the other projects that I can do. It was such a nightmare. I just like this crazy week where my entire schedule got thrown off. But the new rolls of contact paper are here. They have arrived. So it is time to finally start seeing this project come to life. So let's contact paper. So one of the added benefits of doing these plywood panels is that I was able to apply the contact paper when it was flat on the ground rather than on the wall and vertical. If you've ever tried to apply contact paper vertically, it's a lot trickier. It presents a bunch of different other challenges. So this was definitely an added benefit to these panels. I applied the contact paper pretty close to the top edge of the plywood because I knew I wanted that excess to hang off the bottom to cover that little 6-inch backsplash that's already on the counter. I also kept a little overhang on all of the edges just so I'd have a little extra coverage for all of those seams. Even though I'll be caulking this later to cover up any of the gaps, I just want to have that excess because you never know what problems can arise. It's a lot better to have too much than too little. I only used 2 screws in each of these panels to hold them in place. Because it's sitting on top of that bottom piece of backsplash, they're just there to keep it from tipping over, but it doesn't really hold any weight. And once I had all the paper smoothed out, I just finished all the edges and secured the outlets to the outside of the plywood. And that's my first panel done. On to the next. For the sidewall, the plywood wasn't long enough to stretch the entire span of the wall, so I added about a 12-inch piece on the very end in that back corner. Because there were more outlets and light switches on this side panel, it made it a bit trickier, but we got there eventually. And as you can probably see, there are a couple places where the seam between the plywood and the backsplash is a little bit visible, and that's mainly because the walls are so uneven. I wish I had done a little bit more to help prevent that, but you really can't tell in person unless you're specifically looking for a seam right there. Luckily, because of the design of the contact paper, it kind of hides any of the little imperfections that may have happened. And now that we finished the backsplashes, we can move on to the countertops, which are probably going to be a little bit trickier. I went ahead and removed the sink completely, 1, to make my life easier when putting this contact paper down, but also 2, so I can put the sink on top of the contact paper and that seam around the edge can be absolutely perfect. So like I said, I picked this particular contact paper because it was wide enough so that I wouldn't have any seams. But working with a piece this big across this entire side section of the countertop was probably the hardest part of this entire project. It creates so many different challenges. As soon as you get one section set, another section starts to bubble. It becomes very infuriating. Using a heat gun is probably one of the best pieces of advice I can offer for anybody using contact paper around corners or rounded edges. Obviously you want to go on a low heat, but it really helps the paper become more flexible and cling to those rounded sections. That was the longest and hardest piece to do. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna get this set up again because obviously I need a sink, but I'm gonna walk away for the rest of the day because I said at the beginning of this project that if I ever got super frustrated with contact paper like I knew I would, I was gonna step away. So, I'm gonna step away. I just can't step away with this in this stance. So this is a really good example of why you need to buy all of your contact paper rolls in one kind of order, because there can be some, even if you get them from the same vendor, there can be some color differentiation between rolls if you buy them in multiple sets. This roll that I got here was actually the very first, it was like the sample roll that I got, so I was like, well, it's perfect, it'll fit for just these two little spaces that I need. And if you look at it, there is a color differentiation. This has a little bit of more of like a yellow, whereas this has a little bit more of like a gray undertone to it. I don't mind either way, but they clearly right next to each other look different. They look like they're not the same thing. This one also has a little bit more definition in a lot of the marbling. Luckily, I have like just enough left of my big roll that I think I can probably still do these two, but that's lucky because when you put them right next to each other, there is a very clear difference between the two. So I'm not gonna go ahead and use this roll because I want everything to look consistent. So luckily I'm able to avoid this, but it is a good example why I say you should just buy all of your contact paper at once. One of the things I hated the most about this kitchen when I first saw it were these scalloped shelves that just reminded me of my grandma's house. It was not my aesthetic and I knew they had to go right away. And I'm actually reusing the idea I had on my first kitchen makeover, which was basically to cut some hardboard down to basically square off the edges of these shelves. Since I obviously can't rip out the shelves, this ended up being a perfect solution for my problem. I chose a darker wood tone this time around that actually matches closer to a lot of the walnut I've been using around the apartment. I think it just lends to a more sophisticated look, less country, and it works really well with the green and the brass accents in the kitchen. Finally, after what seems like an endless project that took us literally weeks now, after some caulking and touch-ups and paint, this project is done. This project is done. I put this project off for so long because I knew it was going to be difficult, and rightly so. It was tricky. There were a lot of things that came up during the course of this project, but we got past them. And honestly, it was worth it. I love the way these countertops look. I think the white really reflects off the light from the skylight, so it feels a lot more open and bright and airy, especially with these dark cabinets. I was so worried when we painted these, and I had the old tile and the old countertop, and it just kind of, none of the colors were working together, and I was like, trust the process. You just kind of have to trust the process. And I feel like the vision is coming to life, finally. It just puts more of a pep in my step to just really finish this kitchen, because it's gonna look so beautiful when it's done. It already does. I love how the veining, the colors in the veining, the brown, the orange, the coppery kind of work with the green and work with the wood tone and the brass. It all works so well. I'm so happy with the way it turned out. Honestly, I'm so glad this project's done, but we still have a couple more projects to do in this kitchen. We still have to finish the skylight. I want to do something to the fridge. We got to get flooring in here. There are things to be done. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please come on this journey with us. I have so many projects in mind for this apartment. Once we're finished with this kitchen, I'm gonna move into another room. Honestly, the ideas are just endless at this point. Subscribe to the channel, come on this journey with us. I'll see you guys on the next project. Have a great week, guys. Bye.